Welcome to the BlackTrack, where I do commentary and review on movies with an all-black cast, or at least a black lead. Today's movie has a lot of great actors and modern household names in it, but would you believe me if I told you that I had never even heard of the movie until about 2 years ago? And that's despite the fact that it's possibly one of the most important movies when it comes to the legacy of black films. Around 2022, it was casually mentioned to me that I should look into a movie called A Soldier Story, a military murder mystery with an all-black cast. But when I say this person buried the lead, I mean they buried it 12 feet under. That's double a regular burial for those paying attention. 1984's A Soldier Story doesn't just have an all-black cast, it has what would be considered today a Hall of Fame worthy cast of black actors that would guarantee a hit movie upon release. Here's a short list. We have Adolph Caesar, Art Evans, David Allen Greer, Robert Townsend, William Allen Young, and Denzel Washington. But like they say, context is everything, and although that list may be impressive now, every last one of the guys I just named were relative unknowns who were very early in their careers. The actual star of the movie at the time was Howard E. Rollins Jr. as Captain Davenport, an officer sent to the Deep South to investigate the murder of a sergeant at an army base. Rollins was 3 years removed from starring in the movie Ragtime, in which he was nominated for an Academy Award, so in terms of name value, he received top billing. I briefly spoke about A Soldier Story when I did the BlackTrack for the movie Hollywood Shuffle. I mentioned that after Robert Townsend did this movie, he went to his agent to try to get more movies like A Soldier Story, only to be told that they only do one big black movie a year, and you was just in it, buddy. His agent wasn't really exaggerating either, because director Norman Jewison and his production partners had a hard time even getting A Soldier Story off the ground, because pretty much every studio passed on it. The reason given was that it was already hard enough trying to make money off a military movie, but then you throw in an all-black cast, and it was just a risk they weren't willing to take. The only company willing to do it was Columbia Pictures, and they said, yeah, we'll do it, but we're only giving you $5 million to make it happen. Whew, it was rough out here for a black movie in the early 80s, but did a shoestring budget and a cast of relative unknowns do enough to derail this military murder mystery? Let's BlackTrack and find out. A Soldier Story is told primarily through flashbacks. I'd say around 85% of it. And sometimes they even put the flashbacks within a flashback, which makes it slightly hard to follow sometimes, but not impossible. Thankfully, it begins in the present day and shows us Sergeant Waters here, drunk off his ass while leaving the local juke joint. Watching him stumble like this reminds me of that one Martin Lawrence joke from You So Crazy, asking how do you get this drunk? Sergeant Waters is played by Adolph Caesar, and he's one of only 4 people who also starred in the stage play that the movie is based on, called A Soldier's Play. Caesar was a classically trained stage actor who's probably more well known to mainstream audiences as Mr.'s father, old Mr. Johnson in The Color Purple. This was essentially his breakout role, even though he did some TV and stage work before this, and even did some trailer voiceover work for some of our favorite blaxploitation movies.
The reincarnation of a killer who came back from the dead to possess a man's soul, make love to his woman, and get the vengeance he craves.
But it's this role that made him a big name and not only landed him a Best Supporting Actor nomination at the Academy Awards, but also probably got him that role in The Color Purple. Sadly, he would pass away only 2 years after this movie was made, leaving us to wonder about all that potential. Also sadly, he would pass away here in A Soldier Story by a gunshot. But you don't have to worry about missing out on anything here. Oh, we're gonna learn a lot about old Sergeant Waters. In case you forgot, A Soldier Story takes place in the South. It's 1944 to be precise, during the Second World War. And even though the army could probably use all the help they can get, the military is still segregated, and the black soldiers in the unit are relegated to playing baseball games instead of, knocking heads off overseas. It's also probably why everybody is dumbfounded when they see a black officer come to town, a rarity in this age. Even Corporal Ellis, played by Robert Townsend, doesn't know how to react. In this environment, he doesn't know whether to kiss his ass or run away fast. Look how he whipping that Jeep out of this sundown town. As I stated before, Captain Davenport is played by the star of this show, Howard E. Rollins, and you want to know some kind of cool connective tissue? The director of A Soldier Story, Norman Jewison, also directed the 1967 film In the Heat of the Night about a black cop named Virgil Tibbs trying to solve a murder and deal with racism at the same time. Then Norman Jewison directed this movie, which stars Howard E. Rollins, who went on to star in the TV show version of In the Heat of the Night as Virgil Tibbs, entertaining grandmas religiously for over 30 years. This movie is really just one long interrogation after another, and that's where the flashbacks come in. One by one, Captain Davenport interviews all the black soldiers under Sergeant Waters' command, and pretty much each and every one of them have somewhat of a motive. Some big, some small. The first person to be interviewed is Private Wilkie, who's played by Art Evans, a longtime actor who's still acting today, and who I've talked about previously in movies like School Days, CB4, and Tales from the Hood. Private Wilkie immediately comes across as the least likely suspect because he was the ass kisser of the group. He was the type of guy who would tell him about the gun line boss. That is, until you learn that behind the scenes, Waters demoted him for being drunk on the job and berated him for being unambitious. You see, Sergeant Waters had this thing about Southern black people. He felt like uneducated and yes, a massa type Southern blacks were holding more ambitious and educated blacks back. So when he perceives Private Wilkie to be displaying some of those same characteristics, he immediately goes on his list of shit. One of the more interesting things about this film is how it originally makes you think that Sergeant Waters is this great guy, before it slowly starts to reveal to you how much of an insufferable asshole he really is. So you got a demotion and you got told about yourself. Yeah, I'd say that's enough for some get back. I got my eye on you, Wilkie. It's worth mentioning that both black and white soldiers alike believe that the Klan actually killed Waters, and that it's not worth investigating. But Wilkie drops a bomb on us when it comes to that, when he mentions that the Klan usually strips the soldiers butt naked because they don't respect their service, and Waters was found fully dressed. The plot thickens. Next up is Denzel Washington as Private First Class Peterson. This was Denzel's second film. Well, sixth film if you count all the TV movies. And you want to know something funny? A few years ago, Denzel Washington did an interview in which he said we were saying his name wrong all these years, and it's actually pronounced Denzel, but it was up in the air if he was just being funny or not. But if you look at the trailers for all his early movies, all the narrators call him Denzel Washington. So it got me to wondering, at what point did we collectively decide to start saying it the wrong way? Because clearly early on, people knew how to say it the right way. Crazy, right? Up to this point, if anybody has a reason to kill Waters, it's definitely Peterson. As he tells it in his own words, one day Sarge comes in and starts calling them all kinds of geechies and country niggers, and the only person with nuts enough to stand up to a superior officer was Peterson. I love these scenes where Adolf Caesar gets to going off on these dudes, because if you can't tell, he's a pretty short dude compared to everybody else. His bio says he's 5'7", but it looks more like 5'5" to me, but whatever. When he's in these scenes and he gets to talking, you can't tell anyway because his presence is so commanding. You would have thought he and Denzel were the same height.
Now don't you get smart, nigga.
Get your fucking hands off me!
You wanna hit old Sergeant Waters, boy?
This all comes to a head when Waters agrees to shoot the fade with Peterson. And Peterson, rightfully so, thinking this was just an easy lick on an old man, forgot the first rules of combat, and that is, there are no rules. So eat dirt, fool. What kind of a soldier are you, Peterson? I don't really know the reason for this fight, other than to show how much of a dick Waters is, but it's revealed later that Waters actually respected Peterson for standing up to him. So that's Wilkie with the demotion, and Peterson with the old school why I oughta. Damn, who else did Waters manage to piss off in this movie? Well, I'm glad you asked, because even though most people think the Klan is the likely suspects, to me, that would be just a little too predictable, and everybody expects that. What's a little more unexpected, however, is that some white officers might have done it. Turns out, two white officers ended up encountering Waters the night he was murdered, and they got into a little altercation. Well, altercation is a bit of an understatement. They got into formation and put the combat boots to Waters, and even pulled a gun. Well, hell, that's it. Case closed. Not only is that damning evidence, but the other white officers tried to cover it up from Davenport. It's like, on one hand, he has free reign to question the black soldiers and investigate all he wants. But the minute the investigation takes him in the direction of white people, hold on now, brother. What about black on black crime? Now I felt like the movie should have immediately followed up on this for pacing reasons, but for some reason, the movie meanders around for a good little minute, forcing Davenport to go on all these little side missions to get permission to question the white soldiers, and even deviating to a whole nother interrogation in a flashback to a night where some other soldiers were shot outside the barracks, and supposedly one of the soldiers in the barracks shot back. I think this muddies the story just a little bit, because we already have one murder mystery. We don't need to be concerned with another one, especially when it's not even the important part of the scene, and it's not even followed up on. The person given this flashback is Private Henson, played by William Allen Young. Most people probably know him as Moesha's dad on the Moesha TV show, but he's been acting for a long time and still appears in some modern TV shows. He doesn't even try to hide the fact that he hated Waters, and he's the most reluctant to talk also. And although he has his reasons, he's definitely the dodgiest of the suspects. In all fairness, he was going off that jack the night of the shooting. Not the night Waters got shot, the other shooting. See what I mean? But he was sober enough to remember Waters coming into the barracks and arresting CJ Memphis, the most southern soldier in the squad. And why was he arrested? Well, because he was dumb enough to hide a hot loaded gun under a bed that doesn't even go all the way to the ground. That's why. But yet, everybody in the room insists that he wasn't even hurt a fly, which is odd considering he's a soldier. But never mind that. Private Henson insists that CJ never even left the room, and that in fact, somebody snuck in at some point that night. None of it ends up mattering because Waters antagonizes CJ enough to the point that he hits him, and that's all the justification he needs to throw his country ass in jail. CJ Memphis is played by the late Larry Riley, and him always playing the guitar in the movie isn't just for show, because since the studio wouldn't pay for music, Riley wrote and actually performed all the songs he sings in the film. This includes the songs that Patti LaBelle sings, because yeah, she's also in the movie by the way. Also, the late great Herbie Hancock did the score, which I think is hit or miss, but considering the budget and time constraints, it's some serviceable old school Louisiana type music. I'll say one thing about A Soldier Story, unlike some mysteries, it doesn't spoil its answer too early. It's only about 25 minutes left in the film, and it's gonna make you wait for it. The reason for that, in my opinion, is because it's not really about the murder, and A Soldier Story starts to play its hand when Davenport interrogates Corporal Cobb, played by David Alan Grier in his second film. Cobb and CJ were best friends, so Cobb was one of the first people to go down to the lockup to visit him. It's here when we learn that CJ is not only depressed, but also a little claustrophobic and is slowly going crazy. But that's not the biggest issue if you can believe that. Nah, the biggest thing is the fact that Waters also paid CJ a visit to basically confess that the gun was planted and that he wanted him to hit him so that he could pin bigger charges on him and make him do some real time. Adolph Caesar's explanation is one of those scenes that has to be seen to be appreciated. He explains how he pretended to like CJ because once upon a time, it was fun to parade around the silly country Negro for laughs, but now the black race can't afford to have CJ's kind around. His words, not mine.
I put 2 Geechees in jail in Camp Campbell, Kentucky. 3 in Fort Huachuca. Now I got you. One less fool for the race to be ashamed of.
This is a fantastic scene that pretty much encapsulates Sergeant Waters' mindset in a way that makes him seem wrong, but not entirely wrong. Regardless of how the audience feels about it, the words were enough for CJ to unalive himself that same night. What I love so much about the slow build to the finale is that it dives so deep into who Waters really is as a person. At first, the movie tries to make you have sympathy for the fact that this man was shot, but the more you learn about him, the less you care about the fact that he's dead. Hell, by the end, once you learn everything, you probably would have shot him yourself. As great as that scene was, it made me laugh unintentionally, because it's where Martin got that line from in the courtroom episode.
The day of the Geechee is gone, boy.
The day of the Geechee is over.
Damn, I almost forgot that Davenport was supposed to talk to those racist white officers. That was like 2 interrogations ago. One of the officers is played by Wings Hauser, who you might remember as one of the racist white cops in Tales from the Hood. Damn, Wings Hauser, you play a racist a little too well and a little too frequently for me, buddy. Don't know if I want to be typecast that much. So that's David Alan Grier, Wings Hauser, and Art Evans. This is an unexpected Tales from the Hood reunion. The 2 officers' story doesn't change much, but they do give one piece of information that blows this whole case wide open. Since 45 ammo is in short supply, only people on guard duty and the military police are assigned 45 ammo. That means that when they pointed their guns at Waters, these cowards were just posturing because they didn't even have any ammo. This sets the light bulb off for Davenport and lowers the pool considerably. He just needs to get the finer details from the one man who would know, old Hoppin' Bob himself, Private Wilkie. This is where the movie starts to dump a lot of detail on you, so try to stick with me here. Wilkie was on guard duty the night Waters framed CJ, so of course he would have a gun with ammo. He fired that gun and then snuck in the barracks to plant the gun underneath CJ's bed. Waters made him do it with the promise that he'll get his stripes back. Wilkie also flashes us back to the night when Waters told him why he hated CJ so much, and one of the best monologues I have ever seen. You have to see it. Waters tells a story about why they had to kill a black soldier in World War I because he embarrassed them, and that's why he can't let guys like CJ bring the race down. But the way the camera zooms in slowly with CJ in the background and then goes dark as the story itself gets darker is masterful. And the way Adolf Caesar tells the story puts you right into the moment. This dude was going way too soon. But what Waters didn't anticipate was CJ offing himself. So that's why he got so drunk the night that he was killed. So to recap, Wilkie admits to being mad about his stripes, but if he killed Sarge, he'd never get away with it because he was way too close to him. So that pretty much rules him out. Sure, Peterson got in a fight with Sarge and hated him, but by all accounts, after their fight, they got along with each other. Wilkie even says that Waters respected him because he stood up for himself. Both Henson and Cobb have a motive, but remember, only people on guard duty had guns and ammo, and they weren't on guard duty that night. So who exactly was on guard duty the night Waters was killed? Where the hell you going, Private Smalls? I know I haven't mentioned this guy at all, but that's because he wasn't interrogated. He was very in the background in this movie, and that's probably by design. Private Smalls is played by David Harris, and even though the director kept insisting that this was his first movie, I know for a fact that that's not true because he was in one of my favorite movies ever, The Warriors. That was his actual first movie. A Soldier Story is like his fifth. Anyway, Smalls tries to go AWOL because he knows the hammer is coming down, but he's quickly captured after missing a train. Damn, CJ is non-violent. This dude cardio sucks. Maybe y'all shouldn't fight in the war after all. He's brought back for his interrogation, and that's where it's revealed that he was, in fact, on guard duty the night Waters was murdered. But he wasn't alone. Oh no, and he insists he didn't shoot him. Okay, Smalls, then who did?
Did you kill Waters? Whose business?
Wow, he folded so fast. Davenport didn't have to buy him no McDonald's or nothing. The final flashback brings us back to the beginning, but from the point of view of Smalls and Peterson. They encounter Waters right after his assault from the white officers, and Peterson at first just wants to laugh at him. But when Waters suggests he's the reason CJ offed himself, Peterson decides right then and there that he's going to get revenge for everything and everybody. The line that Waters says right before he's shot is not a shot at Peterson, but rather a self-reflection.
They still hate you.
No matter what you do, they still hate you was a line that Adolf Caesar adopted for the stage play and decided to bring over to the movie, because he says early in his career, no matter how great he got at stage acting, he would never get bigger roles. So as he put it, no matter what you do, they still hate you. The way that translates to A Soldier Story is that it shows that for all Waters did to try to quote better the race, no matter what, he's still going to be seen as black. And that's not to say that Peterson was right for shooting him. Even in his defense, he claims that people like Waters need to be removed. So he's really no better, and as Davenport puts it,
who gave you the right to judge? To decide who is fit to be a Negro and who is not.
Wilkie, Smalls, and Peterson are arrested, and the movie ends with the black soldiers marching out of the base preparing to finally join the war. As one final cost-saving measure, these soldiers were borrowed from the local National Guard under the orders of the then Arkansas governor, none other than William Bill Clinton. Man, you really gotta admire the determination of this film. Studio won't pay for music? Get one of your actors to do it. Studio won't pay for actors? Just reuse actors from the play. Studio won't pay for extras? Get the future president to give you some on loan. This is the most resourceful film I've ever seen. But you know what? If they ever remade this, you know who would make a great Sergeant Waters? That damn Harry Lennox. I can see it now. Let's get to the grade. A Soldier Story might have been considered a war movie, but the war isn't on the battlefield. The war is between ourselves. I like how the murder mystery is basically a MacGuffin and a little inconsequential, because whether Sergeant Waters is a villain or not, or whether he deserved to die or not, doesn't matter. The murder is just background noise to what the movie is really about. Sure, Waters is a fascist in every sense of the word, but A Soldier Story does a great job of making you question whether his methods are truly evil or if he has good intentions at heart. In the end, neither Peterson or Waters is right, and that's the point. That's what Davenport was trying to get across by asking what gives anybody the right to decide who's fit to be a Negro. Being black is multifaceted. Sure, you may dislike certain aspects of the culture, but you're a fool if you think you can eliminate parts of the culture you don't like for the so-called betterment of the race. That very idea is what ultimately destroyed Peterson and Waters, and it's a battle that's still being fought today. No matter what you do, they still hate you is a powerful line that pretty much says it all. It's crazy that A Soldier Story didn't get more attention over the years, and it's almost never talked about. Not only was it a financial success, making $22 million on a $5 million budget, but it's also a showcase of the early beginnings of some of our favorite actors. The movie was nominated for some awards, but lost all the big ones. However, it did win the only award that counts in my opinion, and that's the NAACP Image Award for Best Movie and Best Actor for Adolph Caesar. A Soldier Story is a hidden gem and a standout in a year where Beverly Hill Cop was the only mainstream representation of a black actor. My grade for A Soldier Story is an A. The only real flaw is that it could have been shortened for pacing issues, but overall, it's a fantastic film. And that's it for this episode of the BlackTrack. For those of you who saw A Soldier Story long before I did, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about my channel. And until next time, I'll holla at you.